What'd you say, Marty?
Can you explain what your request was?
Oh, yeah. So, as a sponsor, you can submit a dedication. So I can send, I'll shoot you an email
Okay,
later tonight, and you can just use the link to go online and submit your dedication.
okay. Thank
Thank,
you.
yeah, thank you. Okay, and those of you in the Gampa, Venerable Robina should be arriving in about 5 to 7 more minutes. And I do want to just explain that normally here in our center, Geshe Gelik, our resident monk, encourages us and asks us to just prostrate when he prostrates. But the tradition is actually to wait until the teacher prostrates and sits down, and then we prostrate. So we're going to do that while Venerable Robina is here. It's just an added step of respect. And so, if you're used to coming here and prostrating with the teacher, just try to remember to hold back. I'll be the first to probably mess that up. So don't follow me. Yeah, yeah. And if you don't feel comfortable prostrating, then absolutely, you don't have to prostrate. And you'll see some people prostrating all the way to the floor, just folding hands. So it's whatever you're comfortable with. Plenty of seats. Some up on the cushions if anyone wants to come up on the cushions. Don't be shy. Yeah, gallery back there, because that's what she sees. Okay, Venerable Robina has arrived. There she is.
You're hiding behind heads. Move your chairs or something. Maybe I try these and I always give up, isn't it? What do I do? This is the right way. Oh, that's better. Yeah, look at the people. Hi, sweethearts. Yeah, happy to see you all.
Yeah, so this goes.
Let's try it.
Yeah, you can adjust it.
That'll do. I'll be right. I think so, yeah. I think so. Wait a minute. I understand. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, definitely. Okay, doke. That's it. That's it. No, it's not it. It's not it. It's very quiet though. I have to practically eat it for it to work. It's not working. I can't just, that's not good, is it? Is it for recording or for amplification?
Both recording.
You got to have it for the recording.
And so
We need it for them.
Yeah.
But can you people hear me on the computer? You can see me, you can hear me. And you people there can hear me. Huh? Okay, well, okay, good. We'll talk and see what happens. All right. So it's my go, is it? We're going to offer a mandala? Oh, good. Auspicious to offer our mandala to request the teaching. So we just think, yeah, it's so we're going to offer the people who are going to, okay, what are you going to offer the whole deal, right? Here we go. So we're going to offer, first of all, we're going to offer that thing that always reminds me of 10-pin bowling, but it's actually the universe. Who would know? But it is. We're going to offer the universe first, which is the mandala. So we just think, if you don't know all the right visualization, don't worry. Just imagine all the marvelous things of the world that make everyone happy, nice things of the world, all the sense objects. So imagine piling them all up and offering to the Buddha as a request for the teachings, that's like that. And then we're going to be offering representations of enlightened body, a statue, speech, a text, and the mind, a stupa, sort of for us to achieve, in fact, those enlightened body, speech, and mind. Okay. Where's the Umze? Who's singing the prayer? I thought Donna was the Umze. I heard that. Well, better prove it, Donna. Come on. Just a short one.
Didn't want to upstage you, Venerable.
What?
Didn't want to upstage you.
No, it's your job.
Okay.
I shouldn't do
Okay.
that. Go.
Page 97 in the Gold Prayer Book.
Okay.
Saji Puki Jukshin Metok Ramri Ravling Shi Ni Degen Padi Sangye Jindu Nikte O Idro Kunam Dag Jingla Parsho.
Imagine Buddha happily receive. I mean, it's me doing the words, but we have to hope it's coming from the Buddha, okay? Imagine happily accepting the offering.
Jetsun Lama Dampa Kenam Kichu Kukala Kense Chutin Trig Jita Sampe Dulce Tin Ma Laza Gechuki Charpa Wabtu Sol Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryat Kayami.
So there's really two bits to the talk, isn't it? Tell me the topic again. Practice, and then the second bit was
Yeah,
what?
how to develop a practice and find a teacher.
There's two topics, isn't it? Completely different topics. Well, we'll mix them all together.
With guru devotion as a prominent feature.
Say it again.
With guru devotion as something prominent in this teaching, please.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, well, I mean, it is interesting, if you find a person who's very devoted Christian, I guarantee you they love God, right? They're devoted to God, isn't it? Or Jesus, whichever one you prefer. If you're a devoted Muslim, you're devoted. So this is where it's interesting, because people who when we hear about Buddhism, we hear there's no creator. We get very confused, because I mean, Tibetan Buddhists, I mean, I was a Catholic. Well, my all my prayers, everything as a Tibetan Buddhist, leave the Catholics for dead, I tell you, So it's like, it's very surprising, because we think, well, if there's no creator, what's the devotion? What's the prayer? What's all that about? But but if you look into, say, if you're a Zen Buddhist or if you're a Thai Buddhist, it doesn't seem to play the same amount of role. Really, it seems to be the Tibetan Buddhist, that talk about this concept of well, even the necessity to find a teacher, So I suppose the first question is, because I suppose in Christianity you don't say you've got a teacher. You don't say like that. Jesus, maybe you'd say, is your teacher. I don't know. You wouldn't use that term. So one of the commonest questions too is, well, do I need a teacher? Then I say, well, if you're going to become a cook, would you not think the quickest way to learn it is to learn it from a person who teaches you? It's not the quickest way to learn anything. You learn it from a person who knows how to do it. So if we're thinking of becoming a Buddha, if we're on the Mahayana path, if we're a Tibetan Buddhist, the goal is to become a Buddha, So somehow I think that's uncharted territory. So of all things, surely we would need a teacher for that. So I suppose then it's what is the role of a teacher? What role do they have in our lives? And that means, what kind of relationship do we have with that person? What does it mean, So it seems to me, I remember Lama Yeshe said, we're all dying for love. So sweet. We're all dying for love, and it's true. We're social beings. We relate to others. I mean, we relate to others. We're social beings. We relate to others. And it seems to me, if you try to practice a spiritual path, a key component of it is the heart, as we say, the heart, to grow your heart, open your heart. I mean, the whole compassion idea is absolutely about that, having affection and love and compassion and kindness towards other beings, opening the heart, It seems pretty important. So when it comes to a teacher, I remember Lama Yeshe said, Buddha is dead. Very direct. But he said therefore, the only time that the Four Noble Truths will mean anything to you is when you hear it, not the exact words, from the person in front of you. I mean, that's a teacher. So when we hear about Shakyamuni Buddha, we always talk about Guru Shakyamuni. All that means is, at that time, he was the teacher at that time. We all think, oh yeah, there's Buddha, and we see the nice statues with his little thing on his head and looking very holy. Oh, there's Buddha, we'll say. But at the time in India, if you were hanging around then, the place was crawling in sadhus in their yellow robes. You would not have seen one with a little halo saying, oh, I'm the Buddha. No way in the world. You wouldn't have known who the Buddha was. Because you had to, like right then too, you choose your teacher, you choose whom to see as your spiritual guide. And then, of course, we think this is something kind of unique to Buddhism, but I mean, it's something that's really obvious that we need to learn something well. You need to find someone who knows how to do it. It's really obvious. I mean, mum, and the role of the teacher is tremendous. My mother was a musician. Now, well, Bach, she taught me how to play Bach. Well, sing, whatever, doesn't matter. Let's pretend, play the piano. Well, Bach is dead, isn't he? Several hundred years ago, he died. But Bach's music, it will only time it'll be real for me is when I hear it from the person in front. So it's really obvious. My mother got it from where? Her teacher. They got it from where? Their teacher. And you track those teachers back in an unbroken chain of human beings, human knowledge holders, lovely term in Tibetan, rigsin, knowledge holder. These human, real knowledge holders. And there's an unbroken chain of them. There has to be. That's what they mean by the lineage, And you get right back to Bach. Bach's music, he's dead, and his music went from one human mind to the next human mind to the next human mind. They're all the teachers. That's what teachers are. They're the holders of that knowledge. That's how we learn. That's how we learn maths. That's how we learn carpentry, It's how we learn anything. So it's obvious we need a teacher, Best way. And again, surely too, if you're going to learn music from a teacher, I think it helps to like them. Would you not agree? It would help that you like them and that you trust them and that they like you and that they want you to become a good musician. I mean, otherwise, where's the relationship? There wouldn't be one. You just might as well read a book, learn it from a book or something, isn't it? And we can see the difference. I mean, we learn things in all sorts of ways now. But and even if you read a book, where'd that knowledge come from? A human being, their experience. So I think it's fairly obvious, But that doesn't mean you can't practice still. You can. But whether it's Buddhism or music, you can. You can be very clever and you could learn it and you could enjoy it. It's very true. Of course, we know the way they talk in Tibetan Buddhism, the Vajrayana level. This business of guru devotion is absolutely central. And when we hear it first off, and because it's sort of very arcane words, very medieval, really it's medieval, when I first heard Lama Zopa teaching, he was speaking in the same way they would have 1,000 years ago, nothing changed. So when they talk about it, it's so specific to their culture and so specific to this ancient tradition, So it's hard, and it's not familiar to us. We're very kind of we're very weird about it, That's why even the word guru is kind of strange. I know when I first heard the teachings, I didn't think of it. Guru, the whole idea as a guru was an awful idea. And I've been this kind of radical political activist. And then after met the lamas, and then a year later, 6 months later, I decided Lama Yeshe was my teacher. And I said to my sister, Polly, I've got a guru, but don't tell anybody. I was kind of embarrassed, I mean, it sounds so weird. I've got a guru, And even now, my family kind of crack jokes about gurus, whatever that means. I don't know what they think it means. I don't know. But it's kind of like treated like ridiculous, They're not quite sure. I mean, when Lama Zopa passed away, they didn't quite know what to say to me. I mean, I know what to say to them when their husband dies, when the husband dies or something. You know that you're very familiar with it. But when your guru dies, a bit they didn't quite know what to say to me. Didn't quite know, Not sure whether I was sad or not. They couldn't tell, You understand? I can't talk about it in the typical way. Okay, I can't do that. You have to read the books to do that. I can't do that. I try to think about it in a way that's totally reasonable to us, that makes sense, not some kind of strange esoteric Tibetan tradition. I think that's really odd, But the most simple way to me to put it is that when we say the word devotion, it's a nice word. People use it. She's really devoted to her family. We know it's a lovely quality, isn't it? It's a lovely quality to have. We really admire that. Whatever way it manifests, we think it's a nice thing to have. So devotion, and the simplest way for me to put it, here we are on this particular spiritual path, the way it's described, You're trying to, first of all, at the very first level, you're trying to control, discipline your body and speech, right? Why? Because from the Buddhist perspective, what you think and do and say programs you. So obviously he's suggesting we don't kill and don't steal and don't lie and don't jump on the wrong partner, because that will be not much benefit to you. It'll harm you. And the main purpose of that instruction at the beginning isn't because it harms others, it's because it harms us. So here we are trying to discipline our body and speech. Then the next level, we start to become a real Buddhist and we start to look into the mind. That's when you really become a Buddhist. Good ethics is common to anybody. A good communist, a good Buddhist, a good feminist, a good Australian Aboriginal person. Ethics is pretty common. That's the first stages of practice. The next one is when you really become a Buddhist, when you get into the middle scope of the labyrinth, start to look into your mind, understand your mind, change your mind, you know. So then we start to really begin to understand. So when we can, then we start to distinguish. So the key job there in the middle scope of the labyrinth is to learn to distinguish, to identify the delusions, the neuroses, you know, the voices of ego. So we can see pretty clearly when you talk about attachment and anger, attachment more difficult, but anger and jealousy and arrogance and low self-esteem, we can know from our own experience, one of the qualities connected to that is that you're stuck in yourself. You're very separate and lonely and bereft and angry or resentful, and things are ugly, or there's you and then there's the world. And there's a big separation, isn't it? They're not pleasant feelings, and your heart is not open. It's locked and tight and miserable, and you're very absorbed in yourself in a most unhappy way. We identify that. So if you were trying to learn something at that point, you couldn't even hear the person. You couldn't hear them, you know, because your mind's closed. It's the opposite to anything that's useful. So then as soon as you start to begin to lessen those, straight away, you're loosening the grip of all the voices of ego, and you're moving a little bit more towards kindness, a little bit more towards self-confidence, a little bit more towards being loving and patient, a little bit. So already you're kind of opening up, and sort of you're beginning to sort of lessen the distinction between you and others. That means your heart is beginning to open. We understand those. They mightn't say that in Tibetan, but that phrase we understand. Your heart is a little bit open. As soon as you begin to see and hear others more clearly, your heart is open. So then if your heart is open, you can hear things better and you can learn better. And especially if your heart is open to other humans, then wow, that's when you can begin to really develop yourself. So it seems to me having a person you really trust, whom you've chosen, that's a really important point. Remember, Pabonka Rinpoche says, my favorite quote in the whole book, choose your teachers, your gurus, your spiritual mentors. Mentor is about the best word I think we can find in English, suitable, I think. I think the definition of a mentor is a person who's got qualities and who, oh, I forget it. I wish I could, someone got their phone? I like the definition of mentor. Someone tell me the definition. I think it's the closest we get to a spiritual teacher, I think. You have a look. What's it saying? Definition of mentor. I always forget. Huh? What's it say? So say, but give the person the mic.
A mentor is an experienced and trusted person.
Experienced. That's pretty crucial, isn't it? And trusted then.
Who provides guidance, support, and advice to a less experienced individual.
There you go. It's pretty good definition of a teacher, isn't it? I think we need one of them. Thank you very much. That's really helpful. The first one obviously is experienced, pretty clear, knowledgeable, knows that you can be trusted, you can give advice, but you mightn't have much experience. Well, then be quiet, mind your own business if that's the case, you know. I think I could say, I find this topic hard to talk about, okay? I think I could say that I can't imagine being a Buddhist without a teacher. Put it like that. I got a feeling. Because I mean, even if even as your teacher at school, I remember at school when I was 5, Miss Holton went to a convent, the nuns, you know, all the nuns were nice, but Miss Holton, she got me. She had this bright red lipstick, 1949. She had a black cloak on, but she had lipstick and she wore perfume. I think my mother mustn't have worn perfume because I remember her perfume. And I think she must have been nice to me. She was kind to me. She sort of did something. She maybe embraced me or something. I think she had me. I would do anything to please Miss Holton, you know. You understand? I mean, so in that sense, we can go, oh yeah, that's just attachment to reputation, pleasing your teacher. But it's kind of, how do you think we learn, you know? We've got a human heart. We are deluded. We have got attachment. We do need to be approved of because we've got delusions. But it's a powerful part of us that if we can utilize that, if you're trying to teach if you're trying to teach, I mean, you people who've been school teachers, you know what is, you feel utterly hopeless if those children have no interest in you, don't hear you, don't want to learn a single thing. You're just talking to a brick wall. But if there's one person who wants to hear what you have to say, it's like heaven. It's a very powerful relationship. It's obvious. It's a perfect way to learn something, you know. So of course, when we're children, you don't choose your teachers. Maybe we do these days, but I didn't, you know. But here, this is where it's really important. Then you will want, and then because we're ordinary human beings because we have attachment to reputation, which means we always want to be approved of. And that's one of our biggest delusions, but we can use this. If you want to please your teacher, you're going to practice really hard. And then when you come to the class and she hears you play the piano and she shows that she's pleased, you'll be over the moon. It'll encourage you to do more practice. So I think we're human. We have that quality, you know. I think we should use it. And I think it's one of the most powerful ones. Because, okay, we know very well in the formal practices, once you've taken an empowerment, you know, all the business of seeing the guru as the Buddha, all this business, I mean, I don't know, you people, what is that the appropriate topic here, is it? Everyone's taken empowerment in this room? No, that's right. I think because we're human beings, we need to have somebody whom we call a teacher, whom we wish to please. Honestly, it's as simple as that, being very ordinary about it. Because that will encourage us. It does encourage us. And because we have that, I mean, if we're devoted to anybody, okay, it could be your husband, could be your child, one of the things is you think about them all the time. Of course, to most of us, attachment, and then it's a disaster. You know, especially when, you know, you put all your trust in some idiot and you wonder why you get abused, you know, because we've trusted the wrong person. This is very common. That's why certainly in spiritual teacher terms, choose your guru very carefully. You're going to end up like them. And as we know too, certainly as a Buddhist, I mean, I was a student of Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe. They were both my teachers, other teachers as well, but they were my main teachers. But they also, you see, also in my case, they're also my boss. I worked for them. You know, not everybody. I mean, I always worked within the FPMT. I worked for Wisdom, and then I worked for Mandala. And always worked. So they were my boss as well as my spiritual teacher. I don't know why I'm so reluctant to talk about it. It's a very strange topic for me. It's very interesting. I think the key one is because we have a human heart. And when your heart is open, and of course you've got a valid object for your heart, a worthy object for your heart, it's guaranteed that you're going to practice. It's guaranteed you will grow. And it's because the practice here isn't tennis or cooking, it's development of your virtuous qualities. So it's a very direct kind of relationship, you know. You're opening your heart. When the heart is open to somebody you trust, that's exactly the part of yourself you're trying to grow. Do you understand my point? It's exactly the part of yourself. You're trying to grow the virtues and grow the good qualities and lessen the neuroses. The quickest method to do that is to have an open heart when you are easily able I think you're easily able to develop love and compassion and kindness and goodness when in more quickly when you have a person whom you see as your teacher, whom you wish to please. And then, of course, if you do these practices, you're visualizing the different Buddhas. It's a key technique, isn't it? That's the one I think is a bit tricky for us. That's the one that seems a bit peculiar, you know. When you're visualizing the Buddha, you visualize that the Buddha is the mind of your teacher, your Lama, your mentor, that they're the same. But I think I feel there's logic to that. This is one of my mother teaching me Bach. She's teaching me Bach. She's embodiment of Bach. I think it helps to see my mother as Bach. Would it not be reasonable? Do you see my point? It makes sense. I'm playing Bach, trying to learn to play Bach, and if I see my mother, there's a Bach there and my mother there, I won't learn Bach. Do you understand? It's logical that you see your mother as Bach. I mean, it's not esoteric. Okay, she mightn't be 16, whatever he was, century with, hair and 21 children. She only had 7. He had 21, I think. So I think it's very reasonable. It's very logical, So choose carefully, please, because you want to become like them. You want to become like them. I don't know. I think you have to ask me some questions. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. Ask me some questions about it. Come on, if you have
And
questions.
since we are on Zoom and YouTube, we're using the microphone for that and the recording. So if you can just raise your hand, we'll bring you a mic.
Are there any questions? Yeah, go, sweetheart. Yeah.
So in terms of a teacher, obviously we have like Geshe Gelik and Geshe Sangpo and people who are physically here. But for example, I have loved watching and reading the teachings of Lama Yeshe particularly.
Okay, right. Yes.
But is it possible for you to consider somebody your teacher like His Holiness who you've never met?
Oh, I see. Thank you. This is a very good point. Okay. Thank you, sweetheart. Very kind. Yeah, that's the thing. I was about to say that too, because there's Lama. I worked for them. I've known them for quite all these years. But I think I could count. This is also the point, and in a sense, answering. I can probably count on both hands the number of meetings I had with both of them personally, since I knew them, and I've known them since nearly 50 years. I can say that. Okay. Now the second point is Lama Yeshe is dead. He died 84, 94, 104, 114, 40 years ago. He died 40 years ago. So the answer is I think of him in the present tense. You understand? I think of him in the present tense. So and so of course it's not true. He's not here, but it's advantageous to me, isn't it, to think of Lama Yeshe. He's in my mind. I wish to please him. I want to become like him. I think him when I do the practices. So it's really just a very practical thing. It sounds odd, but I'm not sure it is, If you're playing tennis and, and Federer is your coach, I think it really makes sense. So for sure, many people, you can have their main Lama, many people now, their main teacher definitely is His Holiness the Dalai Lama. They might never have a personal meeting in their life. But if you really understand the practices and really understand how to utilize that, you don't feel disappointed, Because, yeah. I mean, that's something I remember. His Holiness, is people talking recently about not liking Zoom and things. I think Zoom's amazing. I love Zoom. I think it's incredible. It's just a tool that's been so able to be used for so many people now, But I remember His Holiness Dalai Lama, so kind. He has given permission to take empowerments from him online, even from recordings. I remember 2 times I've led a group of people who wanted to take the initiation from His Holiness from a recording online, right? And we met together and we talked about, and then we watched together and we took it together. And it's like if you have an open heart, if your mind is open, it's as if he's right there. There's no question. That for me is easy. So it's absolutely many people. Your Lama either is dead or Dalai Lama or you Lama Yeshe, no question. Because because you can see the pictures and you can see the voice and see this person. It's as real as anything, even though technically he's not here. And that can be a powerful tool for you to help you learn and identify with. And also you see the added component there is that you might have a strong karmic connection with that particular, even though you've not met him, but with that particular aspect, that person's mind in that aspect from past lives, some strong connection, So totally valid. Do you understand? But I've got a feeling. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's a crucial thing. I think it's vital. And the main benefit is not because it's some technical thing you're supposed to do, it's because it's a benefit to you. It's a very skillful, it's a technique. It enables us to practice, because we're human. I think it's so powerful. And that's the part too that's odd if we're not used to, maybe it's odd, maybe it's not. But when I was a Catholic, as a little girl, I was in love with, as soon as I went to mass, I knew I was going to be a priest. That's what I announced, it was my job, right? And I loved God. I never thought of God as my creator, so I think I must have some Buddhist imprints, It's more like kind of the Dharmakaya. God is everywhere. I used to love that idea. I'd say God is in the light switch. And I tried to work out what he meant, God is everywhere. I'd say God is in the light switch. I couldn't work it out. I'd look at my homework, my book, God is in the margin of, I don't know why, but God is in the margin of my homework book. I couldn't quite get it. Anyway, whatever. But I mean, it's, why am I telling you that? I'm sorry, for some reason, I don't know quite how to talk about it. Yeah, the simplest part of it too is because as a devoted Christian, let's say, you would be thinking of God all the time. It's fact. Has anybody here been a Christian or a devoted Christian, or did you think about God all the time? That's it, isn't it? And so I think, again, this is the human one. We can see if you haven't got a very good life, you don't have much self-respect, you don't love anybody, or you don't think anybody loves you. That's why you feel lonely. People feel lonely, isn't it? Do you understand? Lonely. Because we're human. As Lama Yeshe says, we're dying for love. But if you're devoted to God, you're not going to be lonely. Do you understand? You won't feel lonely, I promise you. And I think it's the same here. I'm not sure if people agree with that. If you nourish that relationship. I mean, there's Lama Yeshe not here on the planet 40 years. Now Lama Zopa's not here on the planet, 2 years. And even though I didn't see him that much. But because I'm trying to be like them, it's a simple way to put it, and the others as well, my other teachers, they're in my mind all the time. Does that make sense to people? Do people feel that way with themselves, or you've got a teacher? Those of you who are devoted to a teacher, it's like that, right? Yes. Yes, give the man the microphone. So, of course, if you haven't got a teacher, maybe it sounds peculiar. So but if you haven't got a teacher, talk to me about this. Tell me what you think. Yes.
So when I hear you describing the role of the teacher and the relationship with the teacher, I think about two different categories. One is the role model, the person that we follow, but that person doesn't really interact much with us. It's like considering the Dalai Lama or the old Lama Yeshe as our teacher or as our guru, right? There is a model, there is a path that was traced or is being traced by them, but there is no feedback loop. There is no interaction.
Well, okay, so then go on. So there's a question from that, or what?
And the other, and so that's like one category that I see, and the other one is the person who is much closer to you, maybe a member of the Sangha, or who can have conversations with you and provide you the feedback and
Yeah. So is there a question from this?
yeah, I mean, what is
You're
that
asking me to
feedback?
comment on this?
The question is if that feedback loop, if receiving that feedback from the
Yeah,
teacher is
yeah.
part of the relationship.
I understand your point. Very clear. Thank you. It seems to be, it is for some people. I mean, even some among my fellow students of Lama Yeshe or Lama Zopa, they had much closer physical contact. Some of them would get texts from him. Some would get phone calls. Some would get messages. Some would get letters. Do you understand? And there'd be a closer connection. And he would give them advice. One, I mean, to an incredible degree sometimes, and others, not at all. So I suppose from that perspective, I would say that teacher, I mean, from my side, I didn't have that kind of close connection, but I didn't ever feel that I wasn't getting feedback. And I think this is the other part. As you develop a practice, certainly the Tibetan Buddhist practice, and you're visualizing these Buddhas every day, and you're and using these as your main practice, you know, that you're seeing them as your spiritual teacher, you're seeing them as oneness with your teacher. This is a practice one has to cultivate. Then you do get benefit. You do get, you don't, but at a more subtle level, I suppose. You know, I mean, there's, okay, so to some degree, some people like have dreams of their teachers and get advice in their dreams, which is, you know, pretty interesting. So there's that whole level as well, because it's a spiritual teacher. You know, your music teacher doesn't turn up in your dream, maybe. So it depends on the person, you know. I didn't feel like I was missing that. I didn't feel I was missing that, because I use these people as example. I heard their teachings. I read the teachings. I used to, and I would use them as my example, as my reference point for what I was trying to do. And then and as they say, you know, I mean, Lama Yeshe would talk about how the real guru is the internal one. So like anything, when you first start to learn music, you absolutely rely on the teacher telling you exactly what to do. You'd be lost otherwise. But as you progress, even get to grade 2 already, because you've internalized your teacher's advice, you're able to say, well, I did a good job. So almost like you're learning to discover your own quality. And so you can be your own guide then, but you're in reference to their instructions. So I think... yeah, so would you have a particular question about this? Like the first one was what you need and the second one is not so good, or what? What's your point about it?
The previous question was about the distance between ourselves. The previous question was
Yeah.
about the distance between ourselves and the guru, right? And
So for you,
whether or
what's the
not-
question there though? What's your question with that? Do you have a question about that? If let's say you've decided His Holiness the Dalai Lama is your main teacher, then do you have a question about that? I'm interested.
I think there are different levels of people that you can learn from. And
No, but I'm asking you if you have a question
a question about
of this topic. I mean, I'm hearing your opinions, but I'm curious if you have a question.
the question was about if that feedback is needed, if that
Okay,
interaction with
Okay, so that I would say is dependent on the person. So dependent on the person, whether from the teacher's side they give more instructions and other students they don't give more instructions. But from the person's side, if a person, let's say, who is a Tibetan Buddhist, and maybe you're devoted to Geshe-la, and you always feel like I don't have enough meetings and I need his words, I've got a feeling you won't get far. Because I think even with music, it's like that. As you progress more and more in your music, you see your teacher less and less, because you are more and more confident and you've internalized their instructions and you know how you're going. That's my real point. And this certainly, I think it's the same. But another whole level here is because, you know, we're talking about something much more powerful here than a music teacher, because these whole idea of in Buddhism is of these different levels of consciousness and different levels of mind. And a person might never meet the Dalai Lama, but feel totally close and feel guided by them. That's possible. That's very much, many people feel that, you know. Lama Yeshe, for me, I feel completely guided by him. I mean, I can't tell you literally why, because I don't hear his words. He's not appearing in my dreams, but absolutely he's in my mind. I'm trying to become like him. I edit his teachings. I read his teachings. So for me, I'm getting all the guidance I need. I don't need more. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's where it's up to us. If we just need, I've got to sit at his feet and hear his words, then I don't think we're going to get far. We're not going to grow far anyway, because it's, you know, we're not going to get far. It's just wanting praise and approval. That's not helpful. Do you understand? Any other questions, please? I don't know, I'm reluctant to talk about it for some reason. So make me talk about it. Come on. Ask me questions. Ask me questions. Yes.
Has anybody ever become enlightened without a teacher?
I have no idea. I mean, the way they talk, they would say it's not possible. I can't imagine. I mean, technically speaking, Buddha did. He had all his teachers as far as he could go, and then he diverged in his own direction. You see, this is where it gets complicated, because we're talking about, if we're talking about the human level, that's one discussion. But the more you advance on this path, and if you even understand basically from right back, you know, at the pre-Buddha, these genius yogis and scholars who developed this skill to access their more subtle level of mind through the development of samadhi. I mean, a whole nother kettle of fish. That doesn't exist in our world, you know. Even in our religions, there's no equivalent. In Christianity and Islam, there's no equivalent technique. These genius Indians were the one who developed it. Then they identified these subtler levels of mind that are vivid and real, that have got nothing to do with the brain or with the physical body or with the sensory consciousness, and that have much more powerful levels of cognition. So with that level of mind, you have clairvoyance, you can see the past, you can see the future, and as you progress on this path and you get to the level of being, you know, on the having realized emptiness and being a bodhisattva, you can see the Buddha at a subtle level. You see the more subtle level of the Buddha. It's a whole nother discussion, you know. So then Buddha doesn't need to have a human being in front of him. He's obviously, if he's got that developed, he's having direct access to all the Buddhas in his meditation. So, but I can't imagine that you would. Okay, in this path, if we look at the Tibetan Buddhist path, which is the Vajrayana, the most advanced practices, the most advanced levels of the most advanced practices are literally all and utterly rooted in devotion, are literally to do with, and the language is this, is becoming oneness with the enlightened mind. So you have to have another mind out there at whatever level that you call enlightened mind that you're merging your mind with. So it's not possible if there's no teacher. How can you merge your mind with space, you know, or kind of like pretend? So by definition, there has to be, in that sense, a Buddha there for you. Do you understand? And that's just a technique. That's just a technique for you to become your own Buddha. You know, it's a technique that's rooted in the concept of devotion, utterly. They talk about bliss, you know, becoming oneness with all the practices. We understand that they're all rooted in that concept. So that's utterly to do with devotion. Utterly to do with devotion. Why would you become oneness with a peanut? You know, how silly. Or a deluded person, demented, you know. But I think at the simplest level, we have a human heart. So we can grow it by being close to another person, admiring a person, wanting to become like that person. I mean, that's exactly what you're doing with a spiritual teacher. You want to become like them. That's what Bhakti Rinpoche says. You choose them carefully because you're going to end up like them. You're going to replicate that person. That's the whole practice. That implies you've got to have a person out there to become like. Because we're at that human level. We have a human mind and a human heart that at the moment is divided and locked and bereft and lonely and sad by definition because we're full of ego, you know. So it's a powerful way also to smash ego. Is to imagine becoming oneness with someone else. That's incredible. I mean, the best we can do in our world will be in love with somebody and want to become one with them, you know. Won't get you far because it's based on attachment and only disappointment will come. So I think it's a pretty crucial one. I mean, so then the other one is, how do you find one? That's a tricky part, isn't it? So it's different people. Some people consciously go out looking for a spiritual path and looking for a teacher, you know. Some people, we seem to stumble into it. I mean, I didn't say it so clearly to myself that I was looking. I was. I'd been through this political activity and I'd been a Catholic. I'd given it up 10 years later, I wanted a spiritual path, and it was very clear. But I had no idea how or where. I tried to go back to Mass. It didn't work. I tried transcendental meditation. I tried this one. I tried that one. And then I saw a poster about a course by Lama Yeshe Lama Zopa, and I went to that course. And so I didn't know. I never had the word looking for a teacher. I said the words, I think, spiritual path. I was looking for a spiritual path, a way to see the world, you know. So my first teaching was, in fact, Lama Zopa Lama Yeshe. So I sort of fell into their lap, you know. I wouldn't have known the difference between Zen or Buddhist or Gelugpa or anything else. I had no idea. And that's where, you know, if you have the Buddhist explanation of karma, which as a non-Buddhist we don't think of because it didn't occur to me to think that way. But we all have the experience of when you even just meet a person You feel close to that person, like you've known them before. That's a very common thing among ordinary people about ordinary relationships. So of course the Buddhist explanation there is you've got a karmic history with each other. You bump into each other again, like, hello, there you are again, you know. It feels like that, very sure. So to have that, it seems to me, okay, all the theories are, if you know, like the list, I don't even know what the list consists of. There's a long list of all the qualities a person should have. But I think we really understand that one of checking on somebody, doing our due diligence, you know. We are so cautious about even just going to a person who would repair your dress. You're going to check on their qualities, look how many thumbs up they've had before you go anywhere near them, you know. So here the same. I mean, that's really evident. So I can say that with certainty. And because, unfortunately, we often confuse attachment with spiritual experiences. We all want a spiritual experience. You go to some teaching, wow, he's so charismatic. He must be a Buddha, you know. So you kind of fall in love with this person. You don't check on their qualities. You just think it makes you feel good, which is a really childish way to be. I mean, and this is what I find interesting about the Dalai Lama. He's very charismatic. He's very powerful, very charismatic. People love him, you know. But just that's not a good enough reason to think he's a Buddha. That's not a good enough reason to be devoted to him. He's got to show his qualities, you know. That's really important. On the other hand, you could have a teacher who's not charismatic at all, totally boring, but whom you've checked up on and whom you have devotion for. So you've got to see the qualities, you know. But that's totally reasonable. And that's why I always use the example. I have to use it again. I've told the story many times of when I first learned to make a cake for my mother. It's such a good example in many ways, you know. And that's why the first step, the first point is that you have to want what you're trying to, you know. I wanted a spiritual path. I was searching. I was searching. I was looking for a spiritual path. So I wanted it. That's already the first step. And we all know you can, what is it we say? You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. We know if someone forces something on you and we don't want it, it's the worst situation. So you have to want it as the first one. Then your mind is open to it. So with the one of cake making, such a good example. You know, I was my mother's daughter, and she always knew, as long as I knew her, she'd always known how to make a cake. But I'd never wanted. So she never pushed it. Luckily, she was skillful enough to not force me, you know. I always thought it was everybody else's job to cook and make cakes. My sisters, it was not my job. I never thought it was my job to do the dishes either. I was very lazy. I think I must have been some arrogant monk in a past life. It just never occurred to me it was my job, you know. I never did anything. Anyway, the first time, and this is where for me it's a good example, the first time that I wanted to make a cake was when I was a hippie in London. I was about 25. I remember it vividly. I remember the first time the thought arose, I want to make a cake. It was a carrot cake. It was very modern in those days. In the 1970s, to want to make a carrot cake was, now it's normal to want carrot cakes. Then it was most hippie to want a carrot cake. So I thought then I happened to be going home to Australia anyway. I didn't go especially for the cake. I thought I'd ask my mother. Well, I'm sure she was over the moon. Then I was 25. She sort of waiting for me for 25 years to ask her, to show her how to make a cake. And I was finally ready. And this is my point now. I ticked all the boxes. They say in the teachings, when you first want it, then you check. And this is the point. Why would you want to check on the qualities of a person before you ask them to teach you? Because you don't have the experience. You don't have the experience, okay? So this is a good example for me. Before that, no, after that, I can't remember now, it doesn't matter. I'll tell you the cake in a minute. Another experience. When I was a feminist and I was living in New York. This is before I became a Buddhist. And so I was doing martial arts. I'd been doing martial arts and I wanted to do it again. So because I was a feminist, I wanted to do it in a feminist dojo with a female teacher and a group of women. That's what I wanted. So that was my main reason, the basis for my choice of the teacher. So I'd studied for about a year, right? And I enjoyed it. All my friends, and it was really good and blah, blah, blah. And then I went back home to Australia. And by this point, and then I wanted to study karate again. And I found a place that did the same style. And I went and I said I was a whatever belt I was. I don't know, what, whatever belt it was. I told them I was that belt. They put me in the class, this man, the teacher, and then he came at the end of the class. He said, I'm sorry, Robina, you're not qualified. You've got to go back to the white belts. Well, I was really offended, very proud, very upset, how dare he? And then I thought about it, and I realized beforehand I'd chosen the wrong teacher. Do you understand me? I'd chosen, even though it's just karate, I'd chosen the wrong teacher. In fact, she taught badly. I learned wrongly. So I had to start again, that's just karate. But that was the first time in my life, because I'm very proud and I'm very independent. I never think I just like to teach myself and go where I want, how I want, when I want. That's how I've always been. So that was the first time it occurred to me, the concept of having a teacher. It was very curious, very interesting. It made sense to me. And I could see the mistake I'd made. Anyway, back to the cake. That was beforehand. The cake was earlier. I was about 25. I was about 29 at that point, 30. Just before I met Lamieshi, actually. So at 25 years old, I was at the cake. I was in Melbourne. I said, Mum, please show me how to make a cake. And this is the point now. That's, as Lama Zopa said, as Lamieshi said, that's when cakes became real for me for the first time, because my mind was open. I wanted it. I'd already checked on my mother. I'd done my due diligence. I'd tasted her cakes. I'd tasted her students' cakes, my sisters. Her peers said she was a good cake maker. I'd done all the work. It's exactly what they say about a teacher. And you must do that, because when I finally got to the kitchen and she said, okay, darling, get this, do 2 eggs, put this, bowl this, blah, that. And if I didn't have any awareness, like with a karate teacher, I did not know that what she was showing me was wrong. And I wouldn't know because I had no experience, but I hadn't done my due diligence. So I learned wrongly because I chose the wrong teacher. She wasn't qualified. Very simple. It's not a moralistic issue, it's practical. So with the cakes, it was exactly the same. If I just sort of decided I'd ask my latest boyfriend how to make a cake, so I wanted to impress them, and he said, put 16 eggs in, I wouldn't have known it was stupid. I would not know and have no basis. So even when my mother said, put 2 eggs in, I had no basis experientially. But what do they say? I had inferential certainty. I was intellectually confident. I checked on her. And that's why we need to check carefully. And of course, I think in the West as well, why we have to check even the path or even the Buddhist center, if it's Buddhism, because we don't respect religious philosophy at all. Anybody in the West thinks you can go to a course, have some kind of vision, and now you got to write a book about it, People do that all the time. I mean, it's unbelievable arrogance. Even in the field of cooking, you would never dare do that. You'd have to have an authority. You probably check the recipe 40 times. You have to be verified as valid. But just spirituality, we think it's just garbage, it's just so arrogant. So you need to check, because there's so much stuff published, so many books published, that got the label Buddhism, and no one is there's no sort of policing agency which says you can't be a Buddhist. You can call yourself a Buddhist and make up your own stuff. It's so appalling. So you really need to check, if the place is valid, if the center is valid, if its reputation is good. Then the teachers who teach there, you can begin to have some confidence. Not just base it on your feelings, which is just attachment sometimes. So anyways, my mother, the cake turned out to be an apple and walnut cake. And I haven't made one in 30 years, but I guarantee I could. Because you know why? Because it went in. And I remember it's in my memory. It's implanted in my mind. The day, the kitchen, the moment. Like you have a memory in your mind. It's vividly there. It's the first time cakes became real for me, because I got it from this human mind. What do you think that an empowerment is? I'm not kidding now. What do you think an empowerment is? That's an empowerment. It's a human, and that's all empowerment or initiation means. That you get this human being, even though it's His Holiness on Zoom, you received it, you received the blessing. I received the information from my mother. She was a knowledge holder, a cake knowledge holder. I wanted it. I checked. She was valid. I listened, and it all worked. That's an empowerment. That's what people call like a transmission from one mind to the other. It always sounds so grand and holy when it comes to the Buddhist teachings, but it's exactly the same in cooking. Do you understand? It's human, So it's really obvious. We need that human connection. Also, the other point, of course, is, as your point, there's this, typical relationship between a teacher and a student, is they're both there together. Do it this way, do it that way. Don't do it this way. The same with my mum then. That's true. But then in the end, we can see in the Buddhist tradition, this especially the Vajrayana, you do the main work. You as the disciple, we as the disciple do the main work, you know. And that's where I see so many times with people who are very devoted, who really practice well. They feel like they're getting instructions all the time. That, you know, because when you, and when we can take this view, of course, the Buddhist view of mind being much more subtle, we're not discussing a brain here. When you've accessed your more subtle level of mind, and these holy beings have a more subtle level of mind, therefore have infinite more power, they can benefit us in so many ways that we don't even realize. And that's not meant to be esoteric. It's important to understand mind at this subtler level, you know. So it's a whole other level of kind of ability, I think. But I think the key quality is this open-heartedness, and why you should check, because you don't want to open your heart to some idiot. How foolish of you. How stupid. What a waste of time, you know. Are we communicating here? So it's we who do the work. We as the disciples, we do the work, you know. And I think if you teach anybody anything, I think you can see it that way. You know how to do it. Maybe you're teaching your child how to use a hammer or something. You tell them what to do, then you leave it to them. They've got to do the work. You've done it. You know how to do a hammer. You've passed it on. Now the rest of it's up to them. Isn't it? We have to do the work, you know. Any other questions, people? Talk to me.
There might be one online. Naga, do you still have a question?
Who is it? Who has a
Yeah,
question?
Okay.
I was thinking,
Yes, Naga.
mm, hello, Venerable. Nice to
Hello,
see you
Peter.
again.
Yes.
I had a question. Suppose you follow a teacher and they disrobe. You follow a monk, you know, to learn, and then they disrobe, they go into family life.
Yes.
And then can they be still your teacher, or are they following their karma? What becomes as a student? What can you do then?
I understand exactly. Certainly in the Buddhist tradition that I understand, it's you choose the person whom you have a karmic connection with, who you've checked on, you have confidence, and then you basically, you know, you then request them and they accept you. It's all very formal. Then whether they're a monk or not, or whether a nun or not is not relevant. That's not relevant. If they continue their practice and they continue to have qualities, whether they're a monk or a layperson, maybe for the disciple it might be disappointing that they're no longer a monk, but that's just something else. But that should have no bearing on it at all. None at all. Do you understand me? Good, good. Someone else? Questions? Yes, sweetheart. Yes.
Yes, hello, Venerable. Just continuing on the theme of becoming enlightened without a teacher.
Yes.
What do you think about your future self, which is already enlightened, or the true nature of mind, however you want to put it?
Well,
being
I think that's
guided?
just a way of talking, isn't it? So, say the question, make it more formally a question. So what's the point?
My point is, I believe that your future self can be your teacher, the enlightened person.
How would that function, practically speaking? How would that look?
Practically, that would look like having, then the devotion transfers into life itself, because as life unfolds.
Now, wait a minute.
experience-
But how would it function for your practice if you are visualizing your enlightened future self? How does that help you now move towards that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, whatever guidance you get from that place outside of time, right?
But is that really practical? I mean, future doesn't exist yet, does it? There's no future you existing until you're there. So what do you really mean?
Well, that's why I'm positing that the future already does exist in which you're in.
Oh, okay. The
Yeah.
future already exists. That's a whole different. I think. Okay. Well, as you must know, if you've studied the Buddhist teachings, we talk about the conventional reality. And so, conventional reality, you have to first get that clear before you understand its ultimate nature. So, conventional reality is a thing called past, present, and future. So then you've got to define your terms. Like if you can't discuss something as a phenomenon that exists, if you can't define your terms and say the function. So you have to first establish what the past means. Well, that's the term we use for something that's already happened. And the present is each moment as it existing. That's all there really is actually. And the future hasn't come yet. So it makes no sense what you're saying from the simple point of view of conventional terms.
Well, that's why I'm defining future as something that has already occurred, but we have not experienced
No,
yet.
but that's not the definition of future in the conventional.
we
That
can't
might be yours,
communicate.
but that's not not helpful here.
That-
It's like,
That's why I offered the second opportunity for the purpose of communicating. We can talk about, well, then the true, what do you think? I'll use instead your true nature.
your true nature is the emptiness of
Buddha
your
nature.
mind. Okay, so the term we use is that your true nature is your mind when it's enlightened, but that's not yet. So then, question?
So my question is, what exists within the Buddhist structure of getting in touch within the, your tradition and what your understanding is for connecting with your true nature and having that guide you forward?
You get into as a Buddhist, you are another way of saying what your goal is to become a Buddha. Another way of saying that is to discover your true nature. So what you're doing now, if you're trying to become Bach, that's your goal. And then the steps you take now will lead you to it. So
I love that metaphor because
go on.
what I'm trying to propose is that Bach wanted to become Bach and he became Bach. So his future Bach self that was a master.
No, but
in
ordinary conventional terms, the way I understand things, how we're talking in this room, your terms about future Bach has no meaning. There's no such thing as your future Bach doesn't exist. It's the goal. You can, even the practices we do when you visualize the Buddha in Tantra, they talk about bringing the future result into the present. But that's just your mind being creative. You visualize the end result, and that's part of the cause for you to become it. So in that sense, you can utilize that as a technique for your own mind, but that's not literal.
I guess the other issue I'm running into is one
issue you're running into. What does that mean?
Well, I'm trying to have my alignment with the path and my truth come into contact with yours because, that's been our sassy dynamic for 6 years.
Well,
and
wait, stop. Hey, that's a big mouthful. So it seems to me you've got a view that 1 + 1 is 7, and then you heard that 1 + 1 is 2 in the view here, and you're trying to bring them together.
Yes.
I think you'll go mad because you can't.
I think we could all use a little madness here, and that would help open them.
I think you will blow your brains out because you can't at a conventional level say that somebody thinks 1 + 1 is 2 when I think it's 7 and I'm trying to bring them together. You can't. You've got to change your mind, and if you like that person, you've got to start accepting that 1 + 1 is 2.
Well, let's use more tangible metaphors, maybe like train tracks. So if we're
Oops, sorry, darling.
choosing train tracks to be on, I'm choosing the train track in which I am going to end up at a destination that is on those rails. And so I am using the destination that I am applying to guide the qualities I'm trying to develop now.
I have no problem with that.
Okay.
I've just said that was what we do. So what's your question?
My question is I'm just trying to have a dialogue with you about.
I know, but what's your, darling, I don't want to, I want a dialogue, but I want a question that we can have something to talk about.
Well, I'm
get a
ripping off
conclusion.
the can you be enlightened without a teacher? And I'm trying to
Okay, so
discuss the
can you,
mechanics of that with you so that people
okay,
who
can
not
you-
want to, I'm trying to speak to the people like myself in the room, maybe there's no one else,
well, don't you,
that don't want to be Lama. Yes, they
sweetheart,
want to be more themselves.
don't speak for anyone else but yourself.
Okay, well, I'm
So,
speaking for
okay, so if you're, then you, what I'm trying, okay, my advice to you is if you're not sure that the Tibetan Buddhist path is your path, and you're not sure that the Gelugpa path, or whatever it is, then you'd have to keep searching and keep looking and aspiring to find the path that fits your mind and that you can work with. Is that what you're trying to do?
No, I want
Would you
to
say that?
include the Tibetan
beg your
path has
pardon?
always been part of my path, and I'm trying to
Okay,
be
okay,
inclusive of it. and I'm trying
Well,
to
then,
fit and
no, you haven't
understand.
found a path. It's a singular thing. Put it that way. You could love yoga and there are 49 varieties of yoga. And you could say, I love yoga and I go to this yoga teacher and that yoga teacher. But if you start growing deeper into yoga, you're going to narrow down every time your teachers until eventually you find the one that will be the one that'll suit you. Because one will say, put your left toe this way, and the other will say, put it that way. So you've got to find the one that is jibing with your mind and is right. So you have to keep moving and to find your spiritual path and your teachers. May I suggest that's what you need to do?
Yes, but there is the distinction between path and teacher.
No,
You can be on a
it's
path
another
without
word. It's
teachers.
another word, sweetheart. Just another word for the same thing.
So you're saying the path and the teacher are inseparable?
It would be the teacher you choose is the path you're on. Yeah, for sure. On that, it won't be another teacher. How could it be? Not possible. So keep moving. You don't have any reason to be. You just have to keep moving until it's clear, don't you? You're not clear yet. May I suggest that? Is that true? Huh, sweetheart?
I mean, I'm clear. I'm just wanting to
You're
have a
clear about what?
conversation.
You're clear. Excuse me. You're clear about what?
I'm clear that life is unfolding along my path.
That's your
That-
life. No, life is not separate from you, sweetheart.
Right.
You are on a path. It's your life and your mind, and you're working, trying to find a way to grow yourself to become your true nature. That's the Buddhist terms for it.
Right.
So you need to find the methodology that enables you to do that. Keep moving.
Okay.
You will find it.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any more questions? Yeah, yeah.
I have a question.
Oh, hang on.
I,
Yes.
okay. Does the teacher or guru that you choose need to be of a certain educational level, like a lama or someone, a venerable?
Okay, darling, let's just look at these words then, shall we, Diane? Get clear. So the word, what was the word you said before, venerable? Lama.
Lama.
Okay, lama is a Tibetan word that's the equivalent of the Sanskrit word guru, which is the term that's used for a spiritual teacher in those two languages, in those two cultures. So we don't have an equivalent. That's why I said to me, I think mentor is a very nice equivalent. So in terms of the, you meant, do they have high school, university, postgraduate, whatever? No, none of that relevant. The university, college type things are not relevant to this. I mean, Geshe Gelik here hasn't gone to Western schooling, but he's highly qualified in his own tradition. And
No, I didn't mean about Western schooling. I meant about schooling in the Buddhist tradition.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, I think, okay, even that. No, I feel there are different ways of seeing it, and you could have a person who's been through who's done the university thing, but you could also have a person who has got spiritual qualities and who is qualified. But the real point is this, Diane. Okay, there are some people. Sorry, okay. If you're going to be called Geshe, you need to have got the right qualifications. So that's a term that you get when you pass the exams. But the word lama or spiritual teacher, there's no kind of exam you do. And you don't become one of those by passing an exam. You don't even use that word for yourself. If a person you choose to be your teacher, Diane, they become a lama by the fact of your choosing them. That's what qualifies them. So you have to check that person has got qualities that you want to learn and that you want to use and become like. But they don't have to. But they don't say, "I'm now a lama, and you can become my student." Not like that. You make them a lama by you choosing them as your teacher. And that's where the key one is, that you need to be. That they mightn't have the same qualifications as someone else, but they have to have some qualities, obviously, in the things that they're speaking about. You understand? They have to have that.
Yes. So qualities more than qualifications.
Oh, I'd say absolutely, definitely. But see, even that's the point. You might have a very strong connection with a person who isn't a monk, who, let's say, could be a layman, could be a lay woman, but they're a practitioner, they're sincere, and you really trust them, and you can take that person as your teacher, even though they have nobody else who sees them as a teacher. That's totally reasonable.
Okay.
Very personal thing, but you understand, it's very personal. Do you understand me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good one, Diane. Yes.
I was throwing my voice for a second.
Okay,
And now I know I'm not.
okay.
So I have a question because it's something that I will struggle with when you're learning.
When you what? Bit
When
loud.
you're learning, I take in whatever that I'm learning, but you talk about doing the work. And I'm just curious about what recommendations you would give for internalizing these lessons. And then when you go out into the real world,
Okay, good.
actually.
All right. Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, okay. Shall I just tell you what I'm trying to do? I'm just telling you how I try to approach it. Shall I do that? Well, I mean, not because I'm special or anything. Okay. I met these teachers, and even though I struggled with it, first of all, I knew I felt that was the path I wanted. Those teachings, that it turned out to be Gelugpa, it turned out to be Tibetan Buddhists, all these things. I didn't know that then, but that seemed to. It took about a year, and I was there for 2 months and took the teachings, did a retreat, and felt very connected. And then a year later, made a connection with Lama Yeshe and decided he was my teacher, and then Lama Zopa, and then I became a nun, and then I started working for them, and so it just went very smoothly. And so for me, what I'm trying to do is listen to those teachings. I happen to also work with them by editing them. So then I'm trying to learn the words, because this worldview I find is exactly what I was looking for, this whole worldview, the Buddhist way of explaining the world. And that's where we're very different. Some of us have more of a practice on our cushion. Some of us more want to also listen to the teachings and put these two together. It's up to each person. But for me, I have chosen to be a nun, right? I chose to be a nun. So my life, I get up early in the morning. I try to make everything I do connected to my practice. So I'd like to do the water bowl offerings in the morning. I really have confidence in the teachings that making offerings is a very virtuous practice and a very karmically powerful one. That I appreciate. I love to do my water bowl. I get up early. I have a discipline. Get up and do my water bowl offerings. I do them first of all before I do anything else, because I think the Buddha's there. And would I have a knock on the door and there's Lama Zopa and I bring him in and I sit him down, then I go and get my own coffee? I don't think so. So I always offer my water bowls first. I try to bring the Dharma there. As I'm doing my water bowls, I'm offering them to my teachers as the Buddha. Then I have my breakfast and I offer my breakfast. I always think of it as empty, and I think of it as trying to make me healthy, and I think of it as empty, and I make offering. And then I do my work, and I'm doing my work happens to be editing the teachings. And then throughout the day, when I'm dealing with my mind, having a drama, someone doesn't do what I want, and the printer doesn't do this, or the next door neighbor doesn't do that, I try to apply it. I remember bodhicitta, I try to remember emptiness, I try to remember karma, I try to use these as the way of interpreting my life. That's how I live my life. And more, I think more and more we study the teachings and know about karma, impermanence, then the more and more you go from head to your heart, and you apply it to your breakfast, you apply it to your walking down the street, you apply it to the neighbors. You try to bring it into every, because it's the view of the world that we've chosen to have. So your view can't just stay in one part of you and your life is in another part. That's schizophrenic. It's got to be completely informing your life. And the more we remember that every second, then we realize every second is an opportunity to be applying it and then learning it. And whose words am I using? Lama Yeshe's, Lama Zopa's, Dalai Lama's, the people I've heard the words from, whose words I've read in books. They're the words I use. And in that way, I'm feeling also their presence and their encouragement and wanting to be like them. Do you understand?
Yes.
And I think again, I have to keep using ordinary examples. The same for carpentry. You learn all the theories, then you're actually doing it. And as you're doing it, you're remembering what your teacher told you, how to do it this way, how to do it that way. You remembered it. You remember what your teacher told you when you're 5 years old. We internalize it all. And that's where, again, the power of the personal, the power of the human being telling you this information, not just what you got from a book, It makes it more alive. Does that make sense? I think it's common sense, but the trouble is we have to remember it. Because when we see, this is when we realize, first of all, karma, that's a very hard one for us. We don't actually apply it every day. We just go up in our head, oh yeah, karma. And then when something good happens, we don't realize it's karma. We just greedily grasp at it. And a bad thing happens, we blame somebody. So we forget all about karma. So we have to keep remembering every second is an opportunity until eventually our mind is completely oneness with the teachings and you can't possibly interpret anything in any other way. It's your worldview, quite literally. And then you're going to see the result. You become a happier, wiser, more kind person, That's the bottom line. I think that's what we're trying to do, isn't it? That's what you're trying to do as well. There you go. Okay, good. Otherwise, yeah, it's like You're trying to learn music, but you don't study it. Are you trying to study music? You say I'm a musician, but you don't practice. It's demented, you know. And this is where this is another whole discussion about the formal practice, because basically we're all bone lazy. Let's talk about laziness, okay, because it's the biggest problem, I think. We all aspire, we have all these aspirations, you know, and then we always disappoint ourselves because we think we're not going as far as we can or as we should or something. But I think this is about practice. This, you know, if you on the bodhisattva path, we're going to discuss this. We're going to be talking about this. You know, the first 4 of the perfections of the bodhisattva are the ones you deal with in day-to-day life. And you're bopping along as a bodhisattva. You're practicing the first 4, and the 4th one is the most important. It's called enthusiasm. And I think it's a crucial one. When you think you're trying to get enthusiasm, we can't quite work out what you do to get enthusiasm. You know, sounds ridiculous. But when we realize the opposite, which is laziness, it'll really come into focus. So, and this is the biggest obstacle for all of us. And what laziness is, when it's the first kind of laziness is can't be bothered. Can't be bothered, you know. So can't be bothered. The thing you can't be bothered doing is the thing that takes effort. Because this is also called, this one of perseverance or joyful effort or enthusiasm. They're all the same. Joyful effort, enthusiasm, or perseverance. They've got a different flavor, you know. So the thing that takes effort, the thing you can't be bothered doing is the thing that takes effort. And what takes effort is what attachment doesn't want. Because the basic attachment, the most gross level of attachment, and the most primordial in a sense, is attachment to comfort. Our comfort zone, mental and physical. And this is where we are always, and we're going to discuss this in more detail, but if we can have some discipline, you know, decide I'm going to get up and do my practice. You know, you always feel good when you do it. But when we put things, the next level of laziness is you procrastinate. So the first one is I can't be bothered. Then you say, and then what happens, the next one is more tricky. It sounds like a virtue. Oh, I'll do it later, we'll say. And we're lying to ourselves. We won't. So this becomes the main obstacle, you know. So to have the discipline of trying not to put things off, to do it, and that's what brings enthusiasm. And when you have enthusiasm, I mean, everything works, you know, everything works. It's very powerful. We'll discuss it more when we get into that topic. But the biggest one is the disconnect between all the ideas we have, the visions and the goals and the fantasies and the reality. This is a big disconnect. So to be very practical and down to earth about it's so important, I think. And also to rejoice and be delighted at every step of the way, how much we are accomplishing, be glad, you know. But the practice, I mean, okay, there's 2 levels of practice. We know that. There's the formal practice, which is hugely important, I think, because that gives you the feeling you're doing something. You have a formal practice. You have an altar, you have your teachers, and you have your offering, you make your offerings, and make it very beautiful, not like ugly, you know, and dirty. Make it very beautiful. And then you sit, you do your practice, and you sit down, even for a little bit. It helps the mind. You feel like you've done something. It's like the bookend for the day, you know, and you finish the day in the same way. Certain formal practices. So, of course, if we've taken empowerments, we're going to have commitments. We need to do our formal practices. And then throughout the day, trying to incorporate it all. The views, the view of emptiness, the view of Buddha, of karma, the view of impermanence, the view of bodhicitta. These are the main ones. Bringing them into your life every second. Then that really is practice. Then you really have done a good day, you know. Someone else? Some question? Anything else? Yeah? Yes, sweetheart.
Thanks. Venerable, are we only sticking to, I came in late, I'm sorry about that working. Are we only sticking to questions relating to Guru?
No, whatever you like, sweetheart, come on.
All right, so interpersonal drama, like you mentioned, some drama throughout your day. How does emptiness relate to?
I know, it's quite a hard one to talk about. Let's talk about it from the point of view of the opposite, which is dependent, well, the flip side, which is dependent arising, you know. No, forget, okay. Not even that, not even that. Let's just talk about it from the perspective of the most basic neuroses we have, which are attachment and aversion. We go between these 1,000 times a day. We might, I mean, we really have to see this, but it's hard. We don't think this way in the world. So attachment's always there underneath, driving everything. And what it is this constant assumption that only the nice things should happen. That's really what attachment wants. Attachment is a bit of a junkie that's desperate to only have the nice things, nice smell, nice taste, no obstacles, no dramas. That's what, and so it is very fragile. So the moment something comes that isn't what attachment wants, which is the husband slurping his coffee, the red light, person being mean, the thing not working, 1,000 things a day, baby events, then what happens then is attachment just doesn't get what it wants, and there's the panic attack of aversion, which is the basis of anger. And it's fear, totally fear, like, oh my God, that shouldn't be happening. Do you understand me? So so this is really, it is applying emptiness, but I'll put it in a simple way. If we can be brave enough, let's just say something as simple as your husband with his annoying slurping his coffee. I use it as the dumbest example, but it's a really good one, you know. So the attachment only wants nice sound, right? We don't even say it. Oh, I want to go to the kitchen and have a nice sound. No, it's just an assumption. It's just an expectation. Do you get my point? That's attachment. And suddenly this thing comes up and it freaks you out, you know? And it is that. Okay, I mean, they say people want to kill each other for these reasons. Slurping coffee, snoring, you know, all those personal sounds. They make people crazy, you know? We understand. So the way to apply the one of dependent arising and emptiness is you try to catch that moment, and it's very hard. And instead of averting, because that's what aversion does, it pushes it away. Instead of averting it and then having this big opinion about it, and how dare, you greet it. You look at it in the eye. You don't avert. You look at it. And see what fear is. Fear is the natural state of all the delusions. Fear is their flavor. And it only rises strongly when attachment doesn't get what it wants, or when, you know, something like shocking, like a car accident or something, really, or when the I rises strongly. But that's really related to attachment. So you're floating along wanting things to be nice, and suddenly the slurping the coffee or whatever it is, or you drop a cup and you have a panic attack. Anger rises, you know, aversion. So if it's a person, then, or even the cup's a better example because there's no person involved. You instead of the panic, because we've internalized since we're a little girl, you're not supposed to drop cups, you know? And so then suddenly guilt comes, anger, you shouldn't break a cup. You get angry with yourself. You agree with me? It's a minor event. Well, then greet it, look at it. It's just a broken cup. It's just a broken cup. You spill a glass, spill some water. What you see is if you're in a group and you spill water, everybody rushes in to wipe it up. Well, let it be. There's only bloody water. It's not going to hurt anybody. Okay, if it's blood maybe, or it's poison, but we have to always fix things. So just observe the slight panic that arises, which is aversion, and observe there's a broken cup. That's putting emptiness into practice, because when you see something as a big fat thing out there, like a big lump of something, very fixed and fixed and immovable, then you just look at it, it disperses. That's applying emptiness. Because they say you start to look for it. Where's the broken cup? Well, it says there's a bit of cup, there's a bit of cup, there's a bit of cup. You've got this big picture in your mind. Oh my God, slurping coffee. Oh my God, broken cup. Oh my God, bad thing. And we panic. So you walk in, you look into it. You don't avert. You see it for what it is. Suddenly there's less fear. Do you hear that? That's applying. That's why I always use that example. I mean, I always tell the example of when I got held up with a gun in New York when I was younger. And just because it's my personality, I was just fortunate. I'm whatever. I didn't have it. What I'm getting at, okay, it's exactly this example. This bloke puts a gun in my breast, right here, in there. I won't say all the words I got, but I got mad at him. Basically, because I'm a bossy person, I got mad at him. And I swore at him. And he kept saying, give me your money, you know. And I became very clear that it was stupid. I was poor. I said, excuse me, I'm just as poor as you. You give me your money. I mean, I'm very argumentative. So what I did was just instinctively, so there was no longer any fear. And I walked away and it was my party story. There was no trauma, no APTSD, no counseling needed, because somehow, for whatever reason, I looked it in the eye and then it ended up just nothing. I'm sure this guy had more trauma than me. Do you understand me? Do you understand me? It's a really good example, but I was fortunate I could do that. I mean, I didn't plan to do it that way. It just happened, my personality. So it became nothing. It was nothing. It was literally nothing. Do you hear? That's putting dependent arising into practice. It dissipated. It became something different. So as soon as it becomes something different, that's emptiness. As His Holiness said, this is a perfect example. As His Holiness said when someone asked that question, how do you apply emptiness in daily life? He said, see it from another point of view. And that's exactly what I did. That's what you see with a broken cup. Broken cup means bad. Oh my God, I'll get criticized. Broken cup, grandma's cup, no good. I'm a naughty girl. All this drama. As soon as it's just no longer that. Or the husband slurping his coffee. Okay, another example for myself. I have a neighbor downstairs who's old and has a walker. And I think she has a breathing, some kind of machine. And my room vibrates. You understand? So I thought, I can't live. How can I live like this? What am I going to do? And you go mad, you know. So I had no choice but to see it from a different point of view. It's exactly what I'm saying. And the one was to not pay attention to it. And the second one was that when I remembered hearing it, call it good. And I swear to you, I'm not a saint, but I swear to you, it has worked. Yeah, I greeted it. So call the slurping good. Or do an analysis, like you just think of it, there's the tongue and there's the sound, there's the spit, there's the coffee. Oh, that's interesting. Because when it's delusions, it's very concrete and absolute. But see something from another point of view. You call it something different. That's exactly the way. But it takes courage. I'm not trying to say I'm a saint, but you have to sometimes. You can't change. Otherwise you go mad. Because then it just builds up worse and worse. So I can see in my room that it depends on the structure of the room, I think. When I'm in that section of the room, it's totally silent. I move 1 foot away and suddenly hear the sound. So I'd always be moving my chair to be in the right place, which is where I meditate and my office is there. But now it doesn't matter. I just, never mind. I had to do it. I had no choice. That's exactly how you do it. And that's putting emptiness into practice. Do you understand? We have to want to do it. And we can't imagine it's possible because we believe the slurping is the worst thing possible. It can never be anything different. It's absolute, isn't it? That's how we think. That's the problem. Do you understand? Okay, what else? Yeah. Good. Go, darling.
Hello, Venerable. It's
Hello, sweetie.
really fortunate to be here in your presence.
Good, sweetheart.
So I have a question about dedicating merit. I've been doing vows and precepts, and I got an idea that how about I dedicate the merit from taking these precepts towards the well-being of my loved ones, my animals. Is there such a tradition of dedicating merit from your practice towards a specific?
Of course it is. But I mean, so I want to have a discussion about this. Tell me what people think it means, please. It's such a weird concept, actually. But tell me what you think it means. What do you think it means? What do you think it means?
So I think of it as doing good deed, taking good action, and the benefit that comes from it may others benefit from.
Okay, so good. So then this is helpful. So you're saying you do a good thing, and then the benefit that comes to you, isn't it? That's what you're dedicating, isn't it? The merits.
Yes.
So how do you understand merits? It's a very Buddhist phrase. So how do you understand?
Yeah, I understand it as good karma points.
Yeah, I mean,
make it practical for me. Like
I understand that.
doing something.
Yeah, so then a practical example would be if you have some dollars and you put the dollars in the bank, you say you're growing dollars. So then you dedicate, then you think, why have I got these dollars? So I can use them to be of benefit to others. I think that's the meaning of dedication. Or you're growing veggies. So of course we grow the veggies, and then because it's our veggies and we get the benefit of the veggies, but that's why they say dedicating it. I think that's the point. You think, why have I grown these veggies? Why have I done that practice? The results of it will come to me. So I'm offering, so the results are, especially, why am I doing it? So I can be a benefit to others. So I think, of course you can. That's exactly the point. But we have to, I think, is that how you understand dedicating merits, you people? I mean, it's a very kind of Buddhist concept, isn't it? But it's very logical because it stops it being self-centered. You see?
I wonder if there's
When you say you dedicate it to your family, what do you mean by that? What do you hope to come from that? What does it mean?
so I understand that illness, for instance.
Illness.
Illness, let's say my animal is ill, that they are suffering from past bad karma, how karma ripens, how you've taught.
So go on.
So
How does your dedicating your merits help
I
your...
wonder.
Well, see, that's the thing. So what do people think? Because I think it's, I don't think that's not the meaning. What do people think dedicating means? I mean, Lamas would never stop doing it. Tell me what it means. Don, what do you think? Give us a teaching on dedicating merits.
I want to give it to Robbie. So it's a strange concept, in my mind, even all these years later.
Bit
But
louder,
I
dear.
think of it as like all these seeds, positive seeds. Usually when we practice here, we plant seeds, which I think are karmic seeds. They're merit, and eventually they'll ripen in positive results. And
For you.
do we? Well,
For you.
we can. I can dedicate the merit to me, or I can dedicate
No,
merit
wait a
to
minute,
all
stop.
beings.
Stop. So what you're saying is you're sowing seeds in the ground. Like, that's why I like to use a simple example, putting seeds in the garden.
Yeah.
You're putting seeds in your garden and they will become flowers eventually, won't they?
Right.
So that's the result of the merit, right?
Right.
That's the result of your virtue. So then dedicating means, then why have I grown these veggies? So I can share them with others. Isn't that the meaning?
Yes.
Well, that's what we mean. That's what we mean. That's the meaning. That makes sense. Otherwise, just get a bit greedy about your merit. You get a bit greedy about the results. So it just means doing it for the sake of others. That's why you're doing it. You're doing it for the sake of others. That makes sense. That makes sense. Then I think putting in those words, it brings it down to earth. You agree with that? But as for you thinking, hope my dedicating the merit cures my dog's cancer, that's a bit sort of abstract. That's not the point. Are we communicating here? So it's in the same, putting dollars in the bank. Why am I putting dollars in the bank? So when I've got lots of dollars, I can use them to help others. That's the meaning. That's the meaning. That's the meaning. I think so, don't you? Is that right, Don?
Yeah.
Is that right, people? You agree with me? Otherwise, we get a bit esoteric about it, a bit weird, If I dedicate my merits, my dog will stop getting cancer. Not quite like that. Do you understand? But I mean, to want your dog not to have cancer, that's a lovely thought. Nothing wrong with it. But meanwhile, find him a doctor, please, before he gets it. Someone else, people. So, yeah.
We often say, we dedicate this merit to the benefit of all sentient beings. But I mean, many times I've heard that, but I hear what you're saying is that basically it's benefiting me, and then I can benefit all sentient beings.
I think that's all it means. So then you're doing something, and the goal was bodhicitta, which may I become a Buddha. So you put the seeds in the ground. What's the result? Buddhahood. And you dedicate for all sentient beings means when you're a Buddha, that's what you're going to do. It's for them.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's rooting it in compassion, not just being self-centered. But I mean, they talk about it very powerfully, a lot, don't they? Then you have to see it as empty after that. What else, people? So you see, the point, one of the topics is practice. I think this is where practice, every second is practice, but I think it helps us to have a formal practice. That I think so. We're creatures of habit and structure, we need. Don't you agree with that, people? If you feel like you've sat for 5 minutes and done something, done your water bowls, done this, done that, you feel good about it. You've done something because you can see the shape of it, You finish the day with your 4 opponent powers, you practice, you've done it. Do you understand? I think it helps our mind, encourages us, you know. I think it's important. What's that? Who had the microphone? Yes, sweetheart.
Hi, Venerable.
Hello, darling.
How do you deal with fears around income insecurity?
I've never had that. I don't know. I don't have any income for a start, but but I've never had any insecurity about my income. No, lots of people do, don't they? It's true. You mean worried you'll stop having enough money? I know. I mean, is there a valid basis for the worry? You got no job and you're being thrown out of your house? Or is it just a worry?
We're starting a new venture, an entrepreneurial
Oh,
venture.
okay, well, that's a good basis for worry. That's true. Because there's no supposed certainty. I mean, you have a job, but we also know that's not true because you also get, especially now, everyone's getting thrown out of their jobs, isn't it? And the Supreme Court has just agreed that hundreds of thousands of jobs can be thrown out. So there's no certainty. So listen, okay. It's the same as I said before. You're kind of vaguely imagining this black hole of insecurity, you know? So you just have to look at it carefully and unpack it. I really mean that. And so, first of all, you be practical. And you have to be reasonable and practical. Are you being all that? You're doing all your budgets and you're doing all the right things. Well, all you can do, if you're a proper Buddhist, especially if you're a Lama Zopa student, he'd be getting you to do 74 pujas every day and praying to the holy beings to ensure that all the obstacles are removed. So I'm running at the moment some investment thing to make money for Lama Zopa's projects, quite a big investment fund I'm running. And we spend 25,000 a year on pujas and things. Prayer, I mean, you have to have faith in the Buddhas for that. So that would be, from Lama Zopa's point of view, that's one of the most basic things you should do, to remove all the obstacles that you might have created in the past that will be blocking the success of this project. So that would be a massive, if you are a Buddhist, if you've got a Buddhist practice, you are a Buddhist, that I would tell you to recommend, definitely. So you check with Geshe. Does Geshe do Mo's for people? You ask Geshe for Mo's? He does
No,
Mo's.
I haven't yet.
Does he do Mo's? Does Geshe do Mo's? So you ask Geshe, is he your teacher?
No.
Okay, you have a teacher.
It's my first time here.
Sorry. Okay. You have teachers you can consult, or people you can consult? No?
Well, the teacher that I've been following mostly is dead now. He died 2 years ago.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. Well, then, do you have confidence in these types of practices?
In the types of practices
like having a monastery do
rituals?
practices for you, make an offering to the monastery, they do practices for you. No?
I haven't really tried it. But I do have faith in the practice of giving,
You understand? That's good. But I mean, I would really recommend, I would really recommend, what I'm trying to get at is to do practical things, do everything you possibly can. And that from the Buddhist perspective would include doing things like having practices done, like at a monastery or something, that can help remove the obstacles to the success of this practice, that kind of thing. That's something for you to think about, But otherwise, what I'm really saying is all you can do is look it in the eye, see all the things, do it properly, do every step of the way properly, put everything in the right place, do everything properly, make sure all the right conditions are there. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. And then you know perfectly well things are not certain. Even if you had a job tied up for life, you can still get sacked, you can still lose your money. And then also, but look at the worst. So what's the worst possible consequence from this new venture? What's the worst possible outcome? The worst outcome.
That in a year's time, savings are gone. And
so you're putting your savings into the growth of this venture?
Yes.
So this is what is important to do. You look at the worst outcome, that in a year it hasn't done properly and you've run out of money. So you're not going to be making money in that year?
Well, I'll try to. Yeah.
So then you've got to look at the worst scenario and look it in the eye and see if you can cope with that. Because of course it could happen. So you've got to do that. And that's what alleviates the fear, is what I'm getting at. It gives you courage and optimism to really make sure and stay buoyant and optimistic, but look at the worst scenario possible. And can you cope with that? And I'm sure you can.
Yes.
You just get a job, go work in McDonald's or something. I'm sure they'll hire you. Do you understand my point? That's how you alleviate the fear. But don't be fantasy. Don't live in a fantasy. Do everything properly, be grounded and do everything properly. But if you have a Buddhist path, Buddhist practice, I would definitely advise. That's something that I have great confidence in. I mean, our Kopan monastery, you know, in Kathmandu, there's all these things. You can find out from someone here and ask them. Get person to check up what would be most beneficial. And then you maybe offer $50 a month as part of your budget, part of your line item, put it in there as getting these prayers and stuff done for the success of your venture. I'd recommend that as well. That's up to you. But the real one is look it in the eye, look carefully, and then look at the worst outcome, and then think it, and then okay, then you've kind of dissipated it, because the fear comes because you can't look, you don't want to look at it. It's unbearable. You're panicking. But if you won't panic, if you see it, do you understand? I really mean that.
I think that's very practical.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. What else, people? What time is it? 8:30. It's time to go home. Isn't it? A 90-minute talk, right? Or 2 hours? 2 hours. Wow, you guys, you're very optimistic. Go on. More questions. I don't know if I've talked anything about this common sense. I just don't know. I've been pottering along here.
I'm trying to consolidate these.
What, sweetheart? Go.
I'm trying to consolidate this idea of offering merit. I view it as generating positive actions, creating a positive mind, and then sending that positive energy toward someone else that perhaps might change have some effect on causes and conditions in their life.
Oh,
to
really?
make
That's how you
better.
see it. Wow.
But then I hear you say to offering pujas and prayers to remove obstacles. And isn't that kind of the same thing of trying to generate some positive energy that
No, I think that's a much more I think that's a much more specific one. The one of checking, getting, say, for example, Kopan Monastery, every month you plug it into the system, you get the monks to be doing this particular practice, say Tara, and every month you have that done and the dedication is very clear. I dedicate, that we do this puja so that all the obstacles to the success of my venture will be removed and I will be successful. It's very specific. That's very specific. And the dedicating one is also there's nothing wrong with what you just said, but my feeling is that's not the technical meaning of dedication. Dedicate your merits to others. So merit is a term that's used to refer to the good, the positive, from the positive thoughts and positive action, the accumulation of that in your mind. And so you've sown these seeds, like Don said, and those seeds are going to ripen at some point, and they're going to ripen for you, right? So then you dedicate that result. Why am I planting seeds in my garden? They're going to turn into veggies. So Lama Zopa said, it stops you from being selfish. So then instead of being happy about the veggies for you, you decide what are the veggies for? To give them to everybody else.
So you're saying that when we create a merit, it changes me so that then I am able to send energy.
I'm not discussing sending energy to anybody.
Okay.
I'm not even talking about that. It's
guess,
not even the topic. It's not even the point.
What is dedication? I guess I'm confused about
dedication means. You're practicing music. You're practicing to become a cook. So every step of the way, when you're learning cooking, you're dropping cooking seeds into your mind. You're turning yourself into a cook. Would you agree? And the result is that you become a cook. So every day you do that and you think, at the end of the day, I learned all these things. I put all these seeds in my mind that turned me into a cook. Why am I doing this? Because I want to become the best cook so then I can cook for others. Instead of thinking, I'm the best cook in the world, smarty pants. It stops you from grasping onto it as yours. You're doing it, not just now so others can be happy now. You're dedicating all the results of your hard work. Why are you doing it? So then when I'm a Buddha, a cook, or whatever it is, I'm doing it for others. It's quite specific.
So then now I'm wondering, like say you offer pujas to help us, like to
you're getting the Buddhas you're asking the Buddhas to use their power to remove obstacles to your success. It's very specific.
So you're asking them to remove obstacles by altering causes and conditions?
Yeah, or
make
to
something?
encourage your own virtuous seeds to ripen. I mean, in a way, if you get the Tara practices done, let's say, by you doing that, you connecting with the Buddhas, and then the Buddhas do their job, you'll get the result. Your karmic obstacles will be removed. It's because but you're part of the deal. You're making it happen. It's a dependent scenario.
That makes sense.
Do you
Thank
understand?
you. Yes, thank you.
It's like asking someone who's very good at gardening to come and help pull out your weeds. It's the same thing. You know, you get every month you pay $50 to the gardener to come and help you pull out your weeds even more. Same as asking the Buddhas to help.
Thank you. That
Same
makes
thing.
sense.
Do you understand? I think so. Strange conversation, isn't it? Lama's overhead total. I mean, he just like I can't tell you the number of excuse me. He was famous for his generosity. There was one, he was asked to do that Sarah J. Food Fund like 30 years ago. You remember, you know, they have a kitchen now and food. All the monks, 3,000 monks at Sarah, get their 3 meals a day. And Lama's over set up this fund, and now it's been fully funded, and they just live on the interest. So he was asked by the abbot 30 years ago to set up this fund, and then the story goes something like Venerable Roger was not seeing any evidence of Lama Zopa doing any fundraising. They needed seed money. So anyway, one day he had a meeting in Taiwan with some abbess. And she told Venerable Roger that morning after the meeting that the night before she'd had a dream in which Kuan Yin appeared and said, this very special person is coming tomorrow morning. Give him whatever he wants. Well, that's a good way to do fundraising. That's his style of doing fundraising. So what do you want? Well, you know, $4,222.05 from my Sarah J. Food Fund, and he probably got it because whatever. That's, yeah. So it's a question of understanding karma. It's all based on understanding karma, you know. How everything we do sows seeds. So we sow bad seeds, which will ripen as garbage. So we have to get things to remove those obstacles, pull out the weeds. And then we sow good seeds and want to encourage them. We put fertilizer on them. It's as simple as that. And by using the Buddhas, who are powerful, bring them into the mix, they can bring I mean, they're powerful beings. It's not mystical. Like if you're sick, you go to a doctor and they will help you. You want something done, you go to the Buddhas. They'll help you. Are we communicating here? But you've got to have this view of the Buddhist path. You've got to know what a Buddha means. You've got to understand karma. We can make it very esoteric and very vague, I think. It's got to be it's very practical. It's got to be. Otherwise, it's just superstitious rubbish. Okay, what else?
I have a question, Venerable.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned sending money to like Kopan and having them do the pujas. What about, you know, here at the center, we do pujas and
That's right.
practices. So what about the person actually participating in the puja?
Of course,
doing
yes.
it?
But I mean, yes, but of course it's like saying you got a big fat tree you have to cut down. I want to cut it down myself. But if you have 50 people do it for you, is it not quicker? It's a practical issue.
Yeah, more powerful.
The Buddha's in charge. Get them involved,
Yeah.
you know. Especially as Lama Zopa says, when it's a monastery that's connected. I mean, in my case, because I'm devoted to Lama Zopa, some of you might not be. That's okay. But because it's connected they're all my Vajra brothers and sisters, all doing the pay. So there's a strong karmic connection, stronger, therefore more energy involved. Do you understand? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Geshe does all these things, does he? Does Geshe do all these things? Does he talk like this? Does he? Does Geshe talk like this? Huh? He does. You're saying he does? Okay. I know, but Lama Zopa was another kettle of fish altogether. Do you understand?
Venerable?
I remember one time when I was working for Mandala at the international office, this is 30 years ago as well, when it was Land of Medicine Buddha, and we had very few staff and no money, and then we got this big donation. And then the man who ran the office at the time was Harvey. And Lama Zopa said, the cause of getting this donation is Harvey's mandala offerings. I'm just telling you, that's all. Lama Zopa had that was his thing, you know, these pujas and prayers, like nothing. I can't imagine how many he did. Because he has complete confidence in all the Buddhas and the power of the Buddhas and bringing them into the mix, you know. We have to think about that one, because we mightn't have that. Do you understand? Yeah. What else, people? Yes, sweetheart.
I hesitate to ask this because I thought I knew what you were talking about. And as we were talking, when you mentioned causes and conditions, can you elaborate on how the causes and conditions might be altered when you offer to the Buddhas?
I understand exactly. Okay, everything we do and think and say programs us, right? It's a way to put it. Sow seeds in the mind, right? Would you agree with that? That's the view of karma. It's just a natural law. It just happens. It's the way it is. Buddhists have observed it as a reality, not mystery. Every second we do or say or think things, we're dropping seeds in the ground. So some of those seeds can be more powerful, negative or positive, right? We understand that. So if you decide to make an offering to a monastery of 300 monks and 300 nuns who are connected to you, strong karmic connection between all of you, and because they're the Sangha, that's powerful, and they're going to do these various prayers and pujas, say, related to Tara, who's wish fulfilling. So the combination, so the main benefit from all of that to you is because you are doing it. It's a tremendously powerful action that you're doing. You're facilitated. You're wanting it to happen. You're offering the money to do it. And so all this is, that's an action that you are doing. It's an action you are doing. So one person can do the puja, yeah. But if you get 27 other people to do it with you, wow, much more powerful. It's more powerful, it's you did it. You're doing it. So it's powerful for you. You're the one who's got the obstacles. They're not something in space in the sky. Their obstacle means some negative karma, some weeds in your ground that are blocking the growth of your flowers. So if he wants his project to be successful, he wants his flowers to grow, he wants to pull out the weeds. So you can kind of like do a little prayer yourself, very nice. But if you don't have much power, bring in more people, like chopping down the tree. So you bring an entire monastery of monks and nuns, and you bring in they're all doing it, and they're creating merit, but the merit for you, the benefit for you, is that you're doing it. So it's going to put atomic bombs under your weeds. Do you see my point? You see, all those 50 people you bring to you pull your weeds out of your garden, they're all doing a good job, but you're the one who gets the benefit to your garden. The weeds get pulled out. That's all you're doing. Removing obstacles means pulling out the weeds so the flowers can grow. Really, one way of saying practice from here to Buddhahood, one is pulling out the weeds and one is growing the flowers. And the bottom line is to get the weeds out of the way so the flowers can grow. That's all it is. Think about it that way. It's practical. It's not mystical. Do you understand?
Thank you. Yes.
Back there. I mean, this is the trouble, is this medieval language, and we just learn it and repeat it. Then put our own meanings on it half the time. You understand? And if it doesn't make sense, it's not practical, then don't do it, okay? This has got to be practical and doable, and it's got to be real, not kind of hippie-trippy, you know. It's very important.
You might not like this question then.
Go on, it's hippie-trippy, is it?
Is it? Maybe a little bit.
Go on.
So we're saying that Tibetan Buddhism, or Buddhism in general maybe, is not mystical, and there are no mystical shamanic aspects to it. Are you saying? Is that what we're saying?
I don't know. You have to define what you mean by mystical shamanic things. What's that mean?
Gosh, if I could have tracked that better, the previous thing that you said. So we're saying that, okay, just let me see if I can get my thoughts together. I'm sorry. So I have heard that at certain levels of Buddhahood or Bodhisattva levels, people can cultivate their clairvoyance. That seems a little mystical to me.
Okay. I understand.
Okay.
So all of this, the only way you can start to listen to Buddhist teachings and hear them as real, not fantasy, not trip, not cross your fingers, not hope for the best, not belief, is by understanding what the mind is. And that came from these genius Indians. As the Dalai Lama always says, these genius Indians more than 3,000 years ago, who were the ones who began the investigation into the nature of self. They developed this brilliant skill that enables you to completely control, subdue your grosser level of sensory consciousness and the conceptual level to go to subtler levels of your own mind that we don't posit in neuroscience or psychology or in other religions. It's just called mystical. It's real. It's your mind. And you can get to this subtler level. Just that level, just getting samadhi, your mind, as Lama Yeshe said, is like you can't even conceive of the state of mind. So that sounds mysterious to us. But it's real. And it's an incredibly powerful technique. That's well before realizing emptiness, well before Buddhahood, well before bodhicitta. And your mind then is inconceivably powerful, utterly subdued, utterly in control, completely joyful. You see the past, you see the future, you see the minds of others, because this subtle level of mind cognizes subtler phenomena. The job of mind is to cognize. And it can cognize more subtle phenomena, which is the past and the future. And as you progress on your path, developing your mind, lessening the garbage, growing the virtue, and you eventually, you say realize emptiness, and then you're on the bodhisattva path. The first level of the bodhisattva path, there are 10 stages to Buddhahood. Already at that point, you have the capability of manifesting your mind in 100 different physical bodies simultaneously for the benefit of others. This is real. And as you progress up the path to eventually Buddhahood, and when you're Buddha, honey child, your consciousness, which is not physical anyway, will pervade wherever there is existence, because there's nothing blocking it. Ego is totally gone. Delusions are totally gone. Virtue has been perfected. It is the nature of bliss. You are omniscient. You see the universe as it is. You see the minds of all beings, all past, all present, all future, every second. You have infinite compassion for everyone as if they're you, and you have infinite power to manifest in billions of forms throughout billions of universes for billions of eons for the sake of billions of sentient beings. That's Buddha, and it's real. Now, you don't have to believe a single word of it. But that's in the text. So you take it as your working hypothesis. And Buddha says everybody can become one of those. Are we communicating? So it's either real or it's a load of garbage. You got to find out. The onus is on you to discover if it's garbage or it's talking common sense. Do you understand me? So if that leaves shamans for dead, baby. Are we communicating?
What do you mean by that? What did you mean by that? It's just, you're saying that it's even beyond shamanism. It's beyond,
exactly,
even beyond
and it's
the
not
concept of
hippie to be
emptiness.
unknowable. The point is, Buddha's not a creator. Buddha does not create. He's not a creator. He says this is what he has seen to be true and is what is possible. He says, I've done it. Here's my methodology. Over to you, honey. It's like that, one step at a time. Do you understand? I mean, but okay, fine. One step at a time. That's right. I remember, I told this, but in New Zealand a few years ago, this fellow, he happened to be a scientist, and he said, and it was a very good question, and I've never had it before or since, and he said, who revealed the teachings of the Buddha? And that, of course, is the assumption of religious philosophy, that it's unknowable, it's coming from a creator, you can't possibly know it, and you have to believe it. That's the view we have of religion. And Buddha's not asking to believe a single, he's telling us what he has found to be true. He doesn't posit a creator. Everything in Buddhism, all the most esoteric to the most simple. And this is what they say, if anything in Buddhism, any technique, any advice doesn't help you get one step closer to develop your true nature, then it's garbage and chuck it out. But I think it's so important to keep it on the earth like that, even though it's the most esoteric you could ever imagine. What I just said was like mental illness for our world, you know. A neuroscientist would not tell you that's what you're capable of. Do you understand? So it's got to be something real, not fantasy. We think religion's fantasy. This is quite serious, ridiculous, you know. Are we communicating? I mean, it's a big ask, I agree with you. I've never told my sisters this. They never asked me anyway. I would never tell them if I did. I don't know what they think I think. I have no idea. Anyway, I think it's time to go home. Okay? What's next? What's our next on the agenda? Tomorrow's what?
Tomorrow we have the Four Noble Truths
Oh, we do?
from 7 to 9 tomorrow night. And then we're off on Thursday. And then Friday, 7 to 9 again, we start the weekend workshop, which is basically the 6 perfections.
Okay, we'll go. Okay, we can do that. The whole path, basically, sort of the bodhisattva path. Okay, we can do that in a simple way, my simple way. Okay. So thank you, everybody.
So
don't know. I hope something came from tonight. It was just, don't know. I hope something was useful. I'll put it that way, okay, for tonight. And okay, that's it. Thank you. Jangchub Semchog Rinpoche. Ma ke panam ke guchi ke panyampa me pa yang gong ne gondu. That means may bodhicitta grow and grow in the hearts of all. It's an amazing aspiration to want to become a Buddha for the sake of others. May that grow. And then all these seeds we've planted, remember that, it's a process. This hour and a half, 2 hours, been as many moments as there have been is as many seeds that we have planted. Think it that way, so that we want to nourish them. So we nourish them from this moment forward with our practice, seeing them as empty, understanding bodhicitta, putting them in permanence, karma, all these little toolkits in our toolkit, tools, apply them, you know. And we delight, and then we rejoice that we've done this. We've just moved one little step closer to our Buddhahood. Okay? Thank you, people. Thank you.